when tomorrow isn't promised. The fluorescent lights hummed their sterile song through the pediatric ward of St. Michael's Children's Hospital in downtown Chicago. Marcus Williams sat beside his son's bed, his blue suit, the one he'd worn to countless business meetings, now feeling like a costume from another life. His hands, strong and calloused from weekend basketball games and piggyback rides, trembled slightly as they held his 8-year-old son Jaden's smaller, frailer fingers. Jaden looked up at his father with eyes that held too much understanding for someone so young. The hospital gown, decorated with cheerful cartoon astronauts, seemed like a cruel irony against the backdrop of IV poles and monitors that beeped with mechanical indifference. His head, once crowned with thick curls that bounced when he ran, was now smooth and vulnerable, a testament to the aggressive chemotherapy that had stolen more than just his hair. "Dad?" Jaden's voice was barely above a whisper, scratchy from the breathing tube they'd removed just that morning. "Am I going to be okay?" Marcus felt his throat constrict. He'd rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in the hospital cafeteria, in the parking garage at 3 a.m. when he couldn't sleep, in the shower where his tears mixed with the water and no one could see him break. Dr. Patel had sat him down yesterday, her kind eyes unable to hide the devastating truth. The leukemia had spread faster than anyone anticipated. The experimental treatment they'd pinned their hopes on wasn't working. They had weeks, maybe days. "Don't worry, buddy," Marcus said, his voice cracking despite his efforts to sound strong. "Dad is here now. I'm not going anywhere." But even as he spoke the words, he could see the question in his son's eyes. Jaden had always been perceptive, even before the illness. He was the kid who knew when his mom was upset before she said a word, who could tell when his teacher was having a bad day, who left notes for the janitor at school, thanking him for keeping their classroom clean. "I don't want to die, Dad," Jaden said suddenly, and the words hung in the air like shattered glass, each syllable cutting deeper than the last. Marcus felt his world collapse. All the money he'd made, all the success he'd achieved as a corporate attorney, all the cases he'd won, none of it mattered. None of it could save his son. He thought about the irony of it all. He'd spent years fighting for justice, winning settlements worth millions, protecting corporations from liability. But when it came to the most important battle of his life, he was completely powerless. "I know, son. I know," Marcus whispered, pulling Jaden close, careful not to disturb the network of tubes keeping him alive. "I don't want that either. I'd do anything, give anything to change this." The room fell silent except for the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor and the soft hiss of oxygen flowing through Jaden's nasal cannula. Through the window, Marcus could see the Chicago skyline beginning to glow as evening approached. Somewhere out there, people were going about their normal lives, complaining about traffic, arguing about dinner plans, worried about trivial things. He envied them their ordinary problems. "Dad, remember when we went to the Science Museum?" Jaden asked, his voice gaining a little strength as memory brought him momentary escape. "And I said I wanted to be an astronaut?" Marcus nodded, unable to speak, tears streaming freely down his face now. He remembered that day vividly. It was just 8 months ago, before the nosebleed started, before the bruising, before the word leukemia had entered their vocabulary like a curse. Jaden had stood beneath a model of the solar system, his eyes wide with wonder, talking excitedly about exploring Mars, about discovering new planets, about being the first kid to walk on Jupiter. "You made me promise I'd take you with me when I went to space," Jaden continued, a small smile playing on his lips. "You said even astronauts need lawyers." Marcus laughed through his tears, remembering. "I did say that, didn't I? Do you think there's really a heaven, Dad?" Jaden asked, his voice smaller now, afraid. "Like Grandma used to talk about." Marcus thought about his mother, who'd passed away from cancer 3 years earlier. She'd been a woman of deep faith, had raised him in the church, had believed with unwavering certainty in an afterlife where all pain ceased and all tears were dried. After her death, Marcus had struggled with his faith, questioned everything. But now, looking at his dying son, he found himself desperately wanting those beliefs to be true. "I think so, buddy," Marcus said softly. "I think Grandma is there, and she's going to take such good care of you. She loved you so much." "Will you be there?" Jaden asked, and the question pierced Marcus's heart like a physical blade. Not for a long, long time, Marcus said, his voice breaking completely. But one day, yes. One day we'll all be together again. Jaden was quiet for a moment, processing this with the seriousness of someone far beyond his years. The disease had stolen his childhood, forced him to contemplate mortality when he should have been worrying about homework and Little League tryouts. "I'm scared, Dad," Jaden admitted, his small body beginning to shake. "I'm really scared." Marcus climbed onto the narrow hospital bed, gathering his son in his arms, holding him like he'd done when Jaden was a baby suffering from nightmares. "I know, son. I'm scared too. But you know what? We're going to face this together, just like we faced everything else. Remember what I always tell you? William's men are brave," Jaden recited, his voice muffled against his father's chest. "That's right. And you, Jaden Marcus Williams, are the bravest person I've ever known. Do you know how proud I am of you? How proud I've always been, even though I won't become an astronaut?" The question was so innocent, so heartbreaking, that Marcus had to bite his lip to keep from sobbing out loud. "You're already my star, buddy. You've been to places that astronauts can't even imagine. You've taught me about courage, about hope, about what really matters in life. You've made me a better man, a better father. That's more important than any trip to space." The door opened softly, and Sarah, Jaden's mother and Marcus's wife of 12 years, entered carrying 2 cups of coffee and a teddy bear. Her eyes were red and swollen, her beautiful face marked by exhaustion and grief. She and Marcus had barely left the hospital in 3 weeks, taking turns sleeping on the uncomfortable chair in the corner, maintaining their vigil. "Hey, my sweet boy," she said, her voice determinedly cheerful as she set down the coffee and brought the bear to Jaden. "Look what I found in the gift shop. It's wearing a cape, a superhero bear for my superhero." Jaden reached for the bear with the little strength he had left, and Marcus saw his wife's face crumple briefly before she composed herself. They'd had so many conversations in whispered tones in hospital hallways, in the parking garage, in the chapel on the 2nd floor. They'd held each other while they cried. They'd raged against the unfairness of it all. They'd bargained with God and the universe, offering anything, and everything if only their son could be spared. "Mom," Jaden said, clutching the bear, "Dad says Grandma is in heaven. Will she remember me?" Sarah sank onto the bed beside them, completing their small circle. "Oh, baby, she could never forget you. You were her first grandchild. She used to sing you to sleep, remember? That old song about the mockingbird?" Jaden nodded, a tear sliding down his cheek. "I miss her." "She misses you too," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "But you know what? I bet she's been getting everything ready for you, probably baking those chocolate chip cookies you loved so much." The 3 of them lay together on that narrow hospital bed as the Chicago evening deepened into night. They talked about memories, Jaden's first steps, his first day of kindergarten, the time he tried to give his lunch to a homeless man on the street, Christmas mornings, beach vacations, the way he laughed at his dad's terrible jokes, his love of dinosaurs and then superheroes and then space. They talked about love, how much they cherished each other, how Jaden had made their lives complete, how he'd brought joy to everyone he met, teachers, neighbors, the hospital staff. Everyone loved Jaden's bright spirit, his kindness, his curiosity about the world. As midnight approached, Jaden grew quieter, his breathing more labored. The nurse came in, checked his vitals, and gave Marcus and Sarah a knowing look. Dr. Patel arrived shortly after, her presence answering the question no one wanted to ask. "Mr. and Mrs. Williams," she said gently, "I think it's time to call your family if you want them here." The next hours passed in a blur of arrivals. Marcus's brother, Sarah's sister, Jaden's grandparents on Sarah's side, close friends from church. They gathered around, taking turns saying goodbye, each one broken by the injustice of it all. An 8-year-old child shouldn't have to say goodbye to the world. Parents shouldn't have to bury their children. But through it all, Jaden remained, the brave soul he'd always been. He thanked his aunt for teaching him to draw. He told his uncle to keep practicing guitar because he was getting better. He made his grandparents promise to take care of his parents. He asked his best friend from school to take care of his hamster, Mr. Whiskers. As dawn began to break over Chicago, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Jaden's breaths became shallower. Marcus and Sarah were alone with him again, the family having stepped out to give them these final private moments. "Mom, Dad," Jaden whispered. "I love you. Thank you for being the best parents. We love you too, baby," Sarah sobbed, holding his hand. So much. More than all the stars in the sky. More than all the planets in the universe," Marcus added, his voice hoarse from crying. "Dad?" Jaden's eyes fluttered open one last time, fixing on his father's face. "I'm not scared anymore. I can see Grandma. She's smiling." Marcus felt his heart shatter into a million pieces. "That's good, buddy. That's so good. You go with Grandma now, okay? We'll be okay. You don't have to worry about us. Promise you'll tell my story, Dad," Jaden said, his voice barely audible now. "Promise you'll tell people I was brave." "I promise, son. The world will know. The world will always know about Jaden Marcus Williams, the bravest boy who ever lived." A small smile crossed Jaden's face. "I love you, Dad. Don't worry, buddy. Dad is here now." Those were his last words, echoing the comfort his father had given him, turning it back as a gift, as reassurance, as a final act of love from a child to his parent. He slipped away peacefully as the sun rose, bathing the hospital room in golden light, transforming it from a place of death into something almost sacred. Marcus held his son's body long after the monitors flatlined, long after the nurses quietly came in to turn them off, long after Sarah collapsed in grief. He held his son and whispered stories about brave astronauts and distant planets, about a little boy who changed lives just by being himself, about love that transcends death and pain and all earthly understanding. In the days and weeks that followed, Marcus would struggle with why. Why his son? Why now? Why a child so good and pure had to suffer? He would rage and grieve and question everything he'd ever believed about justice and fairness and God. But he would also keep his promise. He started a foundation in Jaden's name, dedicated to funding childhood cancer research and supporting families going through similar nightmares. He spoke at fundraisers, sharing his son's story, his son's courage, his son's last words. He made sure that Jaden Marcus Williams would never be forgotten. And on quiet nights, when the grief threatened to overwhelm him, Marcus would look up at the stars and imagine his son among them, no longer bound by a failing body, no longer in pain, free to explore the cosmos he'd always dreamed about. He'd remember Jaden's last smile, his final words of comfort, and he'd find the strength to face another day. Because that's what Jaden would want. That's what Jaden had asked him to do with his life. To be brave, to keep going, to tell the story of a boy who faced the unimaginable with grace and courage beyond his years. "Don't worry, buddy," Marcus would whisper to the stars. "Dad is here now, and I'll keep your light shining until the day we meet again." In a small frame beside his bed, Marcus kept the last picture taken of him and Jaden in that hospital room. A father and son facing the impossible together, connected by a love stronger than death itself. And though his heart would never fully heal, though the grief would never completely fade, Marcus carried forward the greatest lesson his son had taught him, that love persists, that courage matters, and that even in the darkest moments, we can choose to be light for each other. Jaden's story spread far beyond Chicago, touching hearts across America and around the world. Parents held their children tighter. People donated to cancer research. Lives changed because one brave little boy had lived, had loved, and had shown everyone what truly matters in the brief time we have on this earth. And somewhere, in whatever lies beyond this life, a boy in a hospital gown decorated with astronauts smiled, knowing his promise had been kept, his story told, his love eternal.